Hey Dad, why do you have two Instagram accounts? My daughter Emma's innocent question hung in the air between us as I looked up from my laptop. She stood in the doorway of my home office, phone in hand, her 15-year-old face a mixture of curiosity and mild confusion. What do you mean? I asked, setting aside the work proposal I'd been struggling with all morning. I only have one account, the one you forced me to create last year, remember? Emma shook her head, crossing the room to show me her screen. No, I mean besides @DavidChenOfficial. There's this one too, @DavidChenPersonal. It just requested to follow me. The cold wave hit my stomach before my brain even processed what I was seeing. On her screen was indeed an Instagram profile with my name, my face in the profile picture, a cropped version of our family vacation photo from last summer, and a bio reading, the personal side of David Chen, husband, father, friend, living life authentically. My hands turned to ice as I took the phone from her. 38 followers, following 42 accounts, private profile. An account I had never created. When did this follow request come in? I managed to ask, my voice remarkably steady considering the earthquake beginning inside me. Just now. I figured you finally decided to have a private account for family stuff instead of mixing it with your work connections. Emma's expression shifted as she registered my reaction. That's not you, is it? No, I said quietly, it's not me. As I scrolled through what was visible of the profile, just the profile picture, the bio, and the follower counts, my mind raced through possibilities. Identity theft? A prank by a colleague? Some bizarre social media scam? Dad, you look weird. What's wrong? Emma's voice seemed to come from far away. I handed her phone back, forcing a smile I didn't feel. Nothing serious. Probably just someone who coincidentally has the same name, or maybe a strange marketing thing for the company. Even to my own ears, the explanation sounded hollow. Emma, with a teenager's finely tuned radar for adult dishonesty, wasn't buying it. But it's using your actual picture. That's creepy. I'll look into it, I assured her. Why don't you reject that follow request for now, and let me know if you get any messages from that account. After she left, I immediately pulled out my own phone and searched for the account. There it was, @DavidChenPersonal. I sent a follow request, my pulse pounding in my temples. To my surprise, the approval came almost instantly, as if whoever was running this fake account had been waiting for me to find it. What I saw as I scrolled through the posts made the room tilt sideways. It was my life, but not my life. Photos of places I'd supposedly visited when I was working late, check-ins at restaurants I'd never been to, philosophical quotes about living truthfully and following your heart that I'd never post in a million years. And then I saw him. My best friend of 20 years, Mark Wilson, appearing in photo after photo. Mark and me at a baseball game on a day I'd actually been at a client meeting. Mark and me at his lake house when I was supposedly on a business trip to Denver. The most recent post, dated just 3 days ago, showed a sunset view from Mark's lake house deck. The caption read, "Another perfect evening with good company. Some connections transcend ordinary friendship." My hands trembled so badly I could barely hold the phone. This wasn't identity theft. This wasn't a prank or a scam. This was something far more personal. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. The increased girls' nights my wife Lisa had been having with her friends, the encouraging support for my business trips and late work meetings, her new phone with better security features that always stayed face down on tables, Mark's gradual unavailability for our regular basketball games, his vague excuses about personal stuff he was dealing with. And now, this manufactured digital alibi, a fake Instagram account of ME, created to document a fictional version of my life that provided cover for what exactly? I barely made it to the bathroom before the nausea overwhelmed me. As I knelt on the cold tile floor, my entire reality shifted beneath me. The past year of my life rearranged itself into a new, horrifying pattern, one where my wife was having an affair with my best friend, and they were using a fake social media presence in my name to document their time together. The ultimate betrayal, packaged in the ultimate gaslighting. Not just cheating, but actively creating a digital version of me that led a parallel life to hide their relationship. When I could stand again, I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror, a man I barely recognized staring back with shocked eyes. The question wasn't whether my wife and best friend were having an affair. The evidence was too specific, too calculated for any other explanation. The real question was what I would do next. Confront them immediately with what I'd found? Investigate further to understand the full scope of the deception? Or pretend I'd seen nothing, giving them enough rope to hang themselves while I prepared for the inevitable implosion of my marriage and my oldest friendship? As I splashed cold water on my face, trying to shock myself back to functional thought, my phone buzzed with a text from Lisa. "Working late tonight, don't wait up. Love you." On any other night, I would have accepted this without question. Tonight, I knew with cold certainty that this was just another link in the chain of deception that had apparently defined my marriage for how long? I dried my face, a strange calm settling over me as shock gave way to focus. Before confronting anyone, I needed to understand exactly what I was dealing with. How extensive was this betrayal? How long had it been happening? And perhaps most disturbingly, who else knew about it? I returned to my office and closed the door, my daughter's innocent question still echoing in my head. "Why do you have 2 Instagram accounts?" I didn't have 2 accounts, but by the time I finished my investigation, I would know exactly who did, and everything they had been using it to hide. Lisa and I met in college. She was studying education while I pursued business administration. Our first conversation happened in the university library when she asked to share my table during finals week. 3 hours later, we were still talking, our textbooks forgotten. She had an easy laugh, an insightful mind, and a way of making everyone around her feel instantly comfortable. We dated for 2 years before getting engaged, marrying a year after graduation in a ceremony that reflected both our practical natures, sensible budget, close friends and family only, a short honeymoon we could afford without debt. We approached marriage as a partnership and friendship first, believing the romance would naturally follow from that solid foundation. Early married life brought typical challenges as we established careers and navigated different approaches to finances, household responsibilities, and family relationships. Through it all, communication remained our strength. We talked through disagreements, made decisions jointly, and supported each other's professional growth. When Emma was born 3 years later, we adapted to parenthood with the same collaborative approach. Mark entered our lives during those early years. I met him at a business networking event when I was 27 and he was 29. Both of us relatively new in our careers, but ambitious. He had an energy that drew people in, charismatic, quick-witted, unafraid to take risks. Where I was methodical and analytical, Mark was intuitive and bold. Our contrasting styles created a friendship that benefited us both professionally and personally. Lisa liked him immediately. "He brings out your adventurous side," she observed after our first dinner together as a threesome. She wasn't wrong. Around Mark, I found myself saying yes to experiences I might otherwise have overthought. Weekend camping trips, an impromptu road trip to see a concert, even skydiving for his 30th birthday. As years passed, Mark became family in all but blood. He was at the hospital when our second child, Nathan, was born. He helped us move into our current home, spending an entire weekend painting and assembling furniture. He joined us for holidays when his on-again, off-again relationships left him solo, becoming Uncle Mark to our children. Lisa and Mark developed their own friendship independent of me, a dynamic I encouraged rather than feeling threatened by. They shared interests in hiking and photography that I didn't particularly enjoy. Sometimes they'd spend a Saturday exploring trails while I watched the kids or caught up on work. It seemed healthy, a sign of security in our marriage that my wife and best friend could have their own connection. Our lives settled into comfortable patterns as we entered our 30s. My career in marketing consultancy required occasional travel, but provided well for our family. Lisa taught 4th grade at a school she loved, finding fulfillment in shaping young minds while maintaining flexibility for our children's schedules. We bought the house we'd always wanted in a good school district. We started college funds for the kids. We planned vacations a year in advance. We were, by all external measures, successful adults building the life we'd envisioned. The subtle shifts began around our 12th anniversary, so gradual I barely noticed them accumulating. Lisa developed new interests, a yoga class that expanded to twice weekly, a book club that often ran late, occasional weekend workshops for professional development that required overnight stays. She became more protective of her phone, explaining it as necessary privacy from increasingly tech-savvy children who might accidentally see confidential student information. Meanwhile, my own career demands increased. A major client expansion required more late nights and business trips. I was making partner-track progress, but sacrificing family time to do it. We discussed the trade-offs openly, agreeing the intensity would be temporary and worthwhile for our long-term goals. Mark's presence in our lives remained constant, but evolved in ways that seemed natural at the time. His dating life never seemed to stabilize into a long-term relationship, something Lisa attributed to commitment issues from his parents' divorce. He bought a lake house 2 hours away, inviting us out for weekends that increasingly became complicated to schedule. Our regular basketball games became less regular, our casual dinners less frequent. He's probably just busy with the new property, I theorized when Lisa mentioned the change. Maintaining a second home is time-consuming. She had nodded in agreement, a flicker of something unreadable crossing her face before she changed the subject. The COVID pandemic further transformed our family dynamics. Working and schooling from home created new stresses and reconfigured boundaries. When restrictions eventually eased, we emerged with different patterns. Lisa more independent, the children more self-sufficient, my work more flexible, but also more consuming. Mark, who had spent lockdown at his lake house, seemed somehow distant despite our regular video calls, as if the physical separation had created an emotional one as well. Last year, when Emma turned 15, she insisted we all needed Instagram accounts. "It's how families stay connected now," she explained with teenage exasperation. "Even grandparents have Instagram." I created a basic profile, posting occasionally about marketing insights or family milestones. Lisa embraced the platform more enthusiastically, documenting her classroom activities and personal interests. The children, of course, treated social media as an extension of themselves, navigating its complexities with native fluency. That technological integration into our family life now seemed darkly ironic. The very tools meant to keep us connected had instead documented an elaborate deception. The platform where I occasionally shared genuine family moments had been weaponized to create a fictional version of my life, providing cover for what? How long had this parallel narrative been developing, and what had I missed by trusting so completely in the stability of my marriage and my oldest friendship? As I sat in my office contemplating these questions, I realized something that made my blood run cold. Emma had said the fake account had just requested to follow her. Not that it had been following her already, which meant whoever was operating it, presumably Lisa, had only just discovered Emma's Instagram username. My teenage daughter had inadvertently exposed a deception that might otherwise have continued indefinitely. The thought triggered a fresh wave of nausea. How many other aspects of my life had been manipulated without my knowledge? How many late meetings and business trips had provided convenient coverage for Lisa and Mark's relationship? How long had my best friend been betraying me with my wife? And perhaps most painfully, what kind of people could maintain such elaborate deception while continuing to look me in the eye day after day with apparent affection and respect? The Lisa and Mark I thought I knew would never cause this kind of harm. Yet the evidence on my phone showed they had done exactly that, not in a moment of weakness or poor judgment, but through sustained, calculated deception that required hundreds of individual choices to maintain. Either I had completely misjudged the two people closest to me, or they had transformed into people I no longer recognized. Neither possibility offered any comfort as I prepared to uncover the full extent of their betrayal. Once the initial shock subsided, the analytical part of my brain took over, the same methodical thinking that had built my career. If I was going to confront Lisa and Mark, I needed comprehensive understanding of what I was dealing with. Emotional reactions could wait. Right now, I needed facts. I began with the fake Instagram account, examining it post by post. The earliest content dated back approximately 10 months, shortly after Mark had purchased his lake house. The first few posts were innocuous, stock nature photos, generic inspirational quotes, nothing personally identifying. But within weeks, the account had begun constructing its fictional narrative of my life. "Weekend fishing trip with the old crew," read a caption beneath a Sunset Lake photo in which no people actually appeared. The date corresponded with the Saturday I'd spent at the office finishing a major proposal, while Lisa had allegedly gone to a teacher's workshop. The posts established a pattern, carefully crafted content that documented activities I'd supposedly engaged in during times when, checking our shared family calendar, Lisa had been out with friends or at professional development events. Almost all involved Mark's lake house or activities nearby. More disturbing were the comments between @DavidChenPersonal and Mark's real Instagram account. Inside jokes, subtle references, conversations that implied ongoing private communication. Reading their exchanges felt like eavesdropping on a relationship I wasn't meant to know existed. "Another perfect weekend escape," Mark had commented on a lake house sunset photo. "The best company makes any place special," the fake account of me had replied. The calculated intimacy of these exchanges sent a cold shiver down my spine. This wasn't just documentation of time spent together. It was performance of a digital relationship to reinforce their alibi. I needed more information. The Instagram evidence proved deception, but not necessarily physical infidelity. I opened our shared family computer, stomach churning at what I might find. Our internet browser yielded nothing unusual. Lisa was too smart to leave obvious trails. But the printer history showed documents I hadn't generated. Driving directions to Mark's lake house printed multiple times over months, always coinciding with her supposed professional events or girls' nights. I checked our shared credit card statements next. Most expenses appeared normal, but I noticed small charges at gas stations along the route to Mark's lake house on dates when Lisa had been elsewhere. Never large purchases that might draw attention during our monthly budget reviews, just enough to establish a pattern when viewed comprehensively. Our cell phone location sharing had been glitching periodically over the past year, a technical problem Lisa had attributed to her phone's aging battery. Checking the history in the app settings revealed the glitches perfectly aligned with her absences. Not technical failures, but deliberate toggling of location services. Each discovery added another piece to the puzzle, but I still didn't understand why they'd created a fake account in my name rather than simply conducting their affair discreetly. The answer came when I examined who followed the fake account. Among the 38 followers were names I recognized: mutual friends, Lisa's colleagues, even a few distant family members. People who might occasionally see Mark's posts or activity, but wouldn't directly communicate with me about casual social media content. The fake account provided plausible explanation for anyone who might notice Mark and Lisa together. She wasn't alone with my best friend. She was with her husband and my best friend. The perfect cover story, documented for anyone who might accidentally discover them. By mid-afternoon, I had established a timeline of deception spanning at least 10 months. But something still bothered me. Emma had said the fake account had just requested to follow her today. Why now, after nearly a year of careful operation? I found my answer in a calendar notification. Emma's high school was hosting a parent-teacher showcase this weekend where student photography would be featured. Emma had several pieces in the exhibition, which Lisa, Mark, and I had all planned to attend. If Emma noticed Mark interacting with me on Instagram but saw no such interaction in person, she might mention it, exposing the deception. The follow request was preventative damage control. The calculated nature of this realization made me physically ill. Not just betrayal, but meticulous management of that betrayal, anticipating potential exposure and neutralizing risks. How many similar scenarios had they navigated over months without raising my suspicion? I needed to see if the deception extended beyond digital spaces. While Lisa was still at work and the children at after-school activities, I checked her dresser. something I'd never done in 15 years of marriage. In the back of her underwear drawer, I found what I was dreading: a small pouch containing jewelry I'd never seen her wear, a delicate silver bracelet engraved with forever connections, a pair of earrings too expensive for casual purchase. Items easily hidden at home but worn elsewhere. In her closet, I discovered a small travel bag tucked behind winter coats, containing toiletries, makeup, and clothing items I rarely saw her wear, outfits more romantic and revealing than her usual practical style, a parallel wardrobe for a parallel life. My phone buzzed with another text from Lisa. "Running later than expected, don't wait up, love you." The casual endearment felt like acid on my skin. How many similar messages had she sent while actually with Mark? How many declarations of love had been typed from his lake house, his bed, his arms? I checked our home security system logs, another upgrade Mark had helped install last year. The system showed periodic disarming and rearming during times I'd been traveling for work. Someone entering and leaving our home, presumably Mark, while I was safely hundreds of miles away. By evening, I had compiled irrefutable evidence from multiple sources. The affair had begun approximately 10 months ago, shortly after Mark purchased his lake house. It had progressed from occasional meetings to regular overnight stays during my business trips, or Lisa's fabricated obligations. The fake Instagram account had been created to provide digital alibi and manage potential exposure within our social circle. The deception was comprehensive, deliberate, and ongoing. The final piece came when I checked Lisa's iPad, synced to her phone but with less rigorous security. Her deleted photos folder contained dozens of images. Lisa and Mark together at his lake house, on his boat, in restaurants I'd never visited. The intimacy in these images left no doubt about the nature of their relationship. In one particularly painful photo, they posed on the lake house deck at sunset, Mark taking the selfie while Lisa kissed his cheek, both wearing the contented expressions of people who felt entitled to their happiness regardless of its cost to others. As I sat surrounded by evidence of my wife's infidelity with my best friend, a strange calm descended. The analytical process had temporarily insulated me from the emotional devastation that awaited. I had facts now, incontrovertible proof. The only remaining question was how to proceed. Confrontation was inevitable, but timing and approach remained within my control. Should I confront Lisa immediately, tonight when she returned from wherever she actually was? Wait until I could face both betrayers simultaneously? Or continue normal interactions while consulting a lawyer and securing my position? The decision crystallized when Nathan poked his head into my office to ask for help with homework. My 12-year-old son, innocent, trusting, unaware that his world was about to fundamentally change. The children deserved consideration in how this revelation unfolded. Their stability mattered more than my immediate need for confrontation. I would wait, maintain normalcy for 48 hours while consulting a lawyer and preparing for the upheaval ahead. Document everything, secure finances, create space for the children to process what was coming. The devastation would arrive soon enough. For now, I would protect what mattered most, not a marriage built on fiction, but the children who deserved truth delivered with care and consideration for their well-being. As I helped Nathan with his science project, a notification appeared on my phone. The fake Instagram account had posted a new story, a lakeside sunset with the caption, "Perfect evening unwinding after a long day." The digital David Chen was apparently having a wonderful night at the lake, while the real David Chen helped his son understand photosynthesis, the foundation of his life silently fracturing beneath him. For 2 excruciating days, I maintained a performance of normalcy. I helped with homework, prepared meals, discussed weekend plans, all while carrying the weight of what I'd discovered. Lisa continued her own performance, returning home late Thursday with elaborate explanations about teacher meetings that never happened, sending casual texts about mundane matters as if our entire relationship wasn't built on deception. Friday morning, after the children left for school, I called a lawyer recommended by a colleague who'd recently divorced. The attorney, Patricia Hernandez, agreed to see me immediately, recognizing the urgency in my voice. In her office, I presented the evidence I'd gathered: screenshots, financial records, security logs, laying out the timeline of deception with the same precision I'd use for a client presentation. "This is unusually comprehensive documentation," Patricia noted, reviewing my materials. "Most clients come to me with suspicions or fragments. You've built a complete case." "I'm thorough by nature," I replied, the understatement almost making me laugh despite the circumstances. "What are my options?" She outlined the process for filing for divorce on grounds of adultery, explaining Connecticut's approach to asset division, custody considerations, and temporary arrangements. The clinical discussion of dismantling my 15-year marriage felt surreal but necessary. "Given the nature of the deception, I recommend securing your finances before confrontation," she advised. "Create separate accounts, document shared assets, change passwords on important accounts. Not to deprive your wife of joint resources, but to prevent potential retaliation when she realizes you know everything." I followed her advice that afternoon, visiting our bank to create individual accounts and transfer half our savings. I changed passwords on investment accounts, documented our home's contents with photos, and secured important documents in a safe deposit box. Not hiding assets, everything would be properly divided, but ensuring Lisa couldn't act impulsively when confronted. The most difficult preparation involved the children. I arranged for them to stay with my parents for the weekend, explaining it as a special grandparent visit. They left Friday afternoon, excited about the movies and ice cream my mother had promised. Their innocence as they waved goodbye from my parents' car made my chest physically ache. At 6:30 Friday evening, everything was prepared. I sat in our living room, the evidence organized in folders on the coffee table, and texted Lisa, "We need to talk when you get home, it's important." Her reply came quickly, "Everything okay? I was planning to meet with my book club tonight." The casual lie ignited a flare of anger I quickly suppressed. "No book club tonight, we need to discuss something urgent. I'll be waiting at home." I sent a similar message to Mark. "I need to see you at my house tonight at 8 o'clock. It's about Lisa." His response, "Is everything okay? What's happened?" reflected either genuine concern or exceptional acting. Either way, I didn't elaborate. Lisa arrived at 7:15, her expression a mixture of irritation and curiosity. "What's so urgent it couldn't wait until tomorrow? And where are the kids?" "They're staying with my parents this weekend," I replied, my voice calmer than I expected. I thought they should be elsewhere for this conversation. Her face tightened with the first signs of alarm. "David, you're scaring me. What's going on?" I gestured to the folders on the coffee table. "I know about you and Mark. I know about the fake Instagram account you created in my name. I know everything." Oh. The color drained from her face so rapidly I thought she might faint. She reached for the back of the couch to steady herself, her carefully applied makeup suddenly stark against her pallor. "What are you talking about?" she attempted, but her voice wavered, lacking conviction. "Please don't insult me by denying it," I said quietly. "I have all the evidence here. 10 months of deception documented comprehensively. The account you created pretending to be me, the lake house visits, the jewelry he bought you, all of it." Lisa sank onto the couch, her defensive posture collapsing. "How did you find out?" she whispered. "Emma noticed the fake account when it requested to follow her," I explained. "She innocently asked why I had 2 Instagram accounts." Lisa's hands flew to her mouth. "Oh God," she whispered, the implications hitting her. Our daughter had unwittingly exposed her deception. "Mark will be here at 8, I continued. I thought it would be more efficient to have this conversation once rather than separately. "You invited him here?" Panic edged into her voice. "David, we should discuss this privately first." "Like you and Mark discussed your relationship privately for 10 months? The first edge of anger slipped into my tone. "No, I think we've had quite enough privacy and separate conversations. Tonight, we'll all face this together." The doorbell rang precisely at 8. Mark had always been punctual, a quality I'd once appreciated in my best friend. Now it felt like another twist of the knife. I opened the door to find him looking concerned but composed. "David, what's happening? Is Lisa okay?" "She's fine," I replied coldly. "Come in, we have a lot to discuss." His expression changed when he saw Lisa on the couch. her makeup streaked with tears she'd been unable to contain during our tense wait. Understanding dawned in his eyes, not confusion but recognition. He knew why he was here. "David, listen," he began, but I cut him off with a raised hand. "No, you listen. For once, both of you will listen to me." I gestured to the armchair across from where Lisa sat. "Sit down, Mark." He complied, maintaining distance from Lisa, a belated attempt at discretion that seemed absurd given the circumstances. I remained standing, suddenly unable to share seating space with either of them. "I know about the affair. I know about the fake Instagram account created in my name to provide your alibi. I know about the lake house visits, the jewelry, all of it. What I don't know is why. Why my wife and my best friend would betray me so completely, so elaborately, so systematically." The silence stretched between us until Lisa finally spoke, her voice small. "It wasn't planned, David. It just happened." Affairs just happen. Creating fake social media accounts to document fictional versions of someone's life requires deliberate planning and sustained deception. That doesn't just happen. My analytical mind provided clarity where emotions might have made me vulnerable. Try again. Mark leaned forward, hands clasped between his knees. "David, I know nothing I say can justify what we did, but you deserve the truth. It started last summer when I bought the lake house. Lisa helped me with decorating ideas since you were busy with the Henderson account. We spent time together without intending anything inappropriate. But something inappropriate happened anyway," I observed, my tone flat. Lisa nodded, unable to meet my eyes. "We connected in ways we hadn't expected. The more time we spent together, the more we shared things we weren't sharing in our other relationships. It became important to both of us. So important you constructed an elaborate deception rather than being honest about your feelings. So important you betrayed 15 years of marriage and 20 years of friendship." The anger I'd been suppressing began seeping through. "If your connection was so authentic and meaningful, why build it on a foundation of lies?" "We were trying to figure things out without hurting you," Mark offered, as if this explained everything. A harsh laugh escaped me. "Without hurting me? You were sleeping with my wife. In what scenario does that not hurt me?" "We never meant for it to go so far," Lisa said quietly. "The Instagram account was supposed to be temporary, just to prevent questions if anyone saw us together. Then it became easier to maintain the fiction than face the reality of what we were doing. The reality being that you were systematically betraying me while pretending to love me, while planning family vacations and celebrating anniversaries and attending school functions together. The fullness of their duplicity suddenly overwhelmed me. Do you know what that makes you? Not just unfaithful, but actively cruel. You could have requested separation. You could have admitted attraction to each other. You could have made any choice that involved honesty. Instead, you chose sustained deception while continuing to look me in the eye daily." Neither responded, their silence damning. "And why involve my image in your deception?" I continued, the question that had haunted me since discovery. "Why not simply be discreet? Why create a fictional version of me to facilitate your affair?" Mark looked uncomfortable. "People in our social circle sometimes saw us together. The account provided explanation. You were there too, just not in the photos. It prevented questions before they could arise." The calculated nature of this explanation made me physically ill. "So you weren't just betraying me emotionally and physically. You were literally stealing my identity to provide cover for your relationship. Do you understand how profoundly violating that is?" Lisa began crying in earnest now, her composure fully broken. "We never meant to hurt you," she repeated, the phrase meaningless against the evidence of deliberate choices made hundreds of times over months. "Yet hurting me was the inevitable outcome of your actions. Actions you continued daily while accepting my trust, my affection, my love." My voice broke on the final word, emotion finally cracking through my analytical shield. Mark stood suddenly. "David, you have every right to your anger. What we did was inexcusable, but we need to talk about what happens next, for everyone's sake, including the children." "What happens next?" I echoed, momentarily thrown by his presumption. What happens next is that you leave my house immediately. What happens next is that Lisa decides where she'll be staying, because it won't be here. What happens next is that my lawyer contacts both of you about formal separation proceedings. You've already spoken to a lawyer? Lisa looked up, shock replacing tears. Unlike you, I preferred addressing reality directly rather than constructing elaborate fictions, I replied. Yes, I've consulted a lawyer. I've documented everything. I've secured separate finances. I've arranged temporary custody considerations. I've done everything necessary to protect myself and our children from further harm. The children, Lisa whispered. What have you told them? Nothing yet. They're with my parents for the weekend while we determine how to explain that their mother and Uncle Mark have demolished their family through deliberate choices made hundreds of times over months. The bitterness in my voice was undisguised now. We should talk about how to approach this with them, Lisa insisted. They deserve careful handling. Now you're concerned about careful handling? After bringing another man into their home when I was away? After modeling deception as acceptable behavior? My control finally shattered. You've forfeited the right to determine what happens next. Both of you have. Mark stepped toward me, hands raised placatingly. David, we understand your anger, but children are involved. Whatever you think of us, Emma and Nathan need stability and care during this transition. Don't you dare lecture me about my children's needs, I hissed, stepping back to maintain distance. If their well-being mattered to either of you, you would have considered the consequences of your actions before pursuing this relationship. The confrontation had reached its natural conclusion. Nothing remained to discuss that wouldn't become repetitive or dangerously emotional. I moved toward the front door, opening it in clear dismissal. Mark, leave now. Lisa, you have 30 minutes to pack essentials. I suggest you find accommodation elsewhere for the immediate future. This is my home too, Lisa protested weakly. And you've shared it with another man behind my back, I replied evenly. Your presence here is no longer appropriate while we determine next steps legally. The children return Sunday evening. We'll meet with them together to explain the situation in age-appropriate terms. Until then, I suggest you both consider exactly what you'll tell them about the choices you've made. Mark moved toward the door, pausing beside me. I know it means nothing right now, but I am truly sorry, David. Not just for being caught, but for betraying your trust completely. You deserve better from both of us. Yes, I agreed simply. I did. After he left, Lisa moved mechanically toward our bedroom, presumably to pack. I remained by the open door, unwilling to engage further. When she emerged 20 minutes later with a hastily filled suitcase, her face was ravaged by tears, but her composure partially restored. I never stopped loving you, she said as she passed me. I know that sounds impossible given what I've done, but it's true. If that's your definition of love, I'm better without it, I replied quietly. We'll talk Sunday about the children. Until then, I have nothing more to say to you. As the door closed behind her, the house fell into a silence that felt both desolating and oddly peaceful. The confrontation, dreaded for 2 days, was complete. The initial phase of explosive discovery and revelation had concluded. What remained was the harder, longer process of rebuilding a life fundamentally different from the one I'd believed I was living just 3 days earlier, when my daughter had innocently asked about an Instagram account I'd never created, unraveling the elaborate fiction my wife and best friend had constructed at the expense of my trust, my marriage, and my understanding of reality itself. The weekend after confrontation passed in a strange haze of practical activity and emotional numbness. I cleaned the house thoroughly, as if I could somehow remove the residue of deception from our physical space. I gathered items Lisa had left behind, her numerous toiletries, scattered clothing, framed photos, placing everything in boxes in the garage. Not destruction, just containment. I slept poorly, jolting awake at unfamiliar sounds in the empty house, my subconscious still processing the seismic shift in my reality. During daylight hours, I maintained focus through lists and schedules, practical tasks that required attention without demanding emotional processing I wasn't ready to attempt. Mark texted Saturday morning. I know you need space. When you're ready to talk further, I'm here. I owe you more explanations than I could give last night." I didn't respond. What explanation could possibly justify his choices? What words could rebuild 2 decades of friendship deliberately dismantled through hundreds of individual betrayals? Lisa's messages were more frequent, increasingly desperate as the weekend progressed. "Please tell me where we go from here. I'm staying at Jennifer's apartment. Call when you're ready to talk. I know you hate me right now, but we need to discuss what to tell the children. David, please, at least confirm you're okay." I responded only to the last message with clinical brevity. "I'm fine. We'll discuss the children tomorrow as agreed, 5 p.m. at the house before they return." Sunday morning, my lawyer called with updates on initial divorce considerations. "Given the documented infidelity and identity fraud aspects, we're in a strong position," she explained. "I've drafted temporary custody and support arrangements that maintain stability for your children while protecting your interests." The conversation's practical focus helped maintain my emotional equilibrium, disrupted only when she asked gently if I wanted to pursue criminal charges regarding the fake social media account. "Criminal charges?" I echoed, the possibility having never occurred to me. "Creating false accounts in someone else's name potentially violates several statutes," she explained. "Given the evidence you've provided, we could pursue identity fraud charges if you desired." The option momentarily tempted my anger, a way to ensure Lisa and Mark faced formal consequences beyond the dissolution of our personal relationships. But the thought of criminal proceedings involving the mother of my children, the public exposure this would create for Emma and Nathan, quickly cooled that impulse. "No criminal charges," I decided. "The divorce proceedings will be difficult enough for the children. I won't add that dimension unless absolutely necessary." By Sunday afternoon, my parents arrived with Emma and Nathan, both children energized from their weekend of grandparent indulgence and blissfully unaware of the conversation awaiting them. I maintained a careful facade of normalcy during the brief transition, thanking my parents with a hug that conveyed more than words could express. "Whatever you need, we're here," my father said quietly, his hand firm on my shoulder. My mother held me longer, whispering, "The children will be okay because they have you. Remember that through whatever comes next." Their support steadied me as I prepared for the most difficult conversation of my life, explaining to my children that their family structure had fundamentally changed because of adult choices beyond their control or understanding. Lisa arrived precisely at 5, looking exhausted but composed. We sat at the kitchen table, maintaining formal distance while discussing approaches for the imminent conversation. "They deserve age-appropriate truth," I insisted, "not elaborate fictions like the ones you and Mark constructed." She flinched but nodded agreement. "We tell them we're separating because Mom and Dad have relationship problems we can't solve while living together. We emphasize that none of this is their fault, that we both love them completely regardless of what happens between us." "And Mark? How do we explain his sudden absence from their lives?" The question clearly hadn't occurred to her. I don't know. He's been their uncle since they were born." "An uncle who betrayed their father and broke apart their family," I observed coldly. "Perhaps we simply explain that adult relationships sometimes change and Mark won't be visiting for the foreseeable future." She agreed without argument, her usual confidence diminished by the reality of consequences now manifesting. We established practical arrangements. Lisa would have the children Wednesdays and alternate weekends while we worked through formal custody agreements. She could visit them at the house when I wasn't present. Financial support would flow through attorneys until court-ordered arrangements were established. When Emma and Nathan arrived home at 6, we gathered in the living room for the careful, painful conversation we'd prepared. Emma, perceptive at 15, immediately sensed the tension. Nathan, at 12, initially seemed confused by the formal setting. "We need to talk about some changes happening in our family," I began, my voice steadier than expected. "Mom and I have decided to separate for a while. This means we'll be living in different places, but we both love you just as much as always." The initial reactions were predictable: confusion, questions, tears from Nathan, angry silence from Emma. We addressed each concern with united reassurance despite our personal conflict, emphasizing stability in school and activities, continued communication with both parents, and the unchanging nature of our love for them, regardless of adult relationship status. "Is this because of that weird Instagram account?" Emma asked suddenly, her adolescent intuition uncomfortably accurate. "The one that was pretending to be Dad?" Lisa paled visibly, unprepared for this direct connection. I interceded smoothly. "Adult relationships are complicated, Emma. There were problems between Mom and me that existed before that account, but it's not something you need to worry about." "Are you getting divorced?" Nathan asked, the word carrying devastating finality. "We're separated right now," Lisa explained gently. "What happens long-term is something we're still figuring out, but whatever happens, we'll always be your parents and we'll always love you." The conversation continued for nearly an hour, addressing practical concerns about schedules, holidays, living arrangements. Throughout, Lisa and I maintained a united approach despite our personal fracture, prioritizing the children's emotional security above our own conflict. When we finally concluded, both children retreated to their rooms, Emma with angry door closing, Nathan with plaintive looks that broke what remained of my heart. "That went as well as could be expected," Lisa observed quietly after they'd gone. "Don't confuse functional co-parenting with forgiveness," I replied, my tone controlled but definitive. "I'll always coordinate with you for their benefit, but what existed between us is gone, permanently." She nodded, tears filling her eyes. "I understand. For what it's worth, I am truly sorry, David. Not just for being caught, but for every choice that led us here." "Your apology changes nothing," I said simply. "Please leave now. I need to check on the children." After she left, I sat alone in our living room, now irrevocably changed from ours to transitionally mine. The confrontation and initial aftermath were complete. The practical arrangements were established. The children had been told in the most careful, considered manner possible given impossible circumstances. What remained was the harder, longer process of personal recovery from a betrayal so profound it had altered not just my marital status, but my fundamental understanding of trust, relationships, and my own judgment. How could I have been so completely deceived by the two people I trusted most? How could I rebuild confidence in my perceptions after such comprehensive manipulation? These questions would require time and professional help to address. For now, my priority remained the children currently processing their own versions of family fracture upstairs, innocent casualties of adult choices they couldn't fully comprehend. I climbed the stairs to check on them, beginning the new reality of parenting through trauma I hadn't created but was now responsible for helping them navigate. Whatever my personal pain, their well-being remained paramount. The one certainty in a life suddenly defined by the discovery of a false Instagram account that had exposed the authentic betrayal beneath my seemingly solid marriage. The initial weeks after separation unfolded in a blur of practical logistics and emotional management, establishing new routines with the children, coordinating custody exchanges with minimal direct interaction with Lisa, fielding concerned inquiries from friends and family with careful versions of truth that maintain dignity without hiding reality. "Lisa and I have separated due to infidelity," became my standard response when directly asked. "We're prioritizing the children's well-being during this transition." Most people accepted this explanation without pressing for details. The few who knew Mark well enough to notice his simultaneous disappearance from my life made connections I neither confirmed nor denied. The truth would eventually circulate without my active participation. Mark attempted contact several times, calls, texts, even a handwritten letter delivered to my office. I maintained absolute non-engagement, refusing the closure conversations he seemed to crave. His betrayal had forfeited any right to emotional resolution at my expense. Lisa's communication remained strictly child-focused, respecting the boundaries I'd established. She never mentioned our relationship or her ongoing connection with Mark, maintaining careful separation between co-parenting logistics and personal matters. Whether this represented genuine respect or strategic positioning for divorce proceedings remained unclear. 1 month after separation, I began therapy with Dr. Russell, a counselor specializing in betrayal trauma. His office, warm lighting, comfortable seating, conspicuous absence of digital devices, became a sanctuary for processing what I'd experienced. "What you're describing involves multiple layers of betrayal," he observed during our second session. "Not just marital infidelity, but betrayal by your closest friend, and the additional violation of identity theft through the fake account. Each aspect requires separate processing." This framework helped explain the complexity of my emotional responses. Anger that sometimes targeted Lisa, sometimes Mark, sometimes myself for not recognizing the deception sooner. The violation felt totalizing, contaminating memories extending far beyond the 10-month timeline of their affair. "I keep questioning everything now," I admitted during one particularly difficult session. Were there earlier affairs I missed? Were there signs I ignored? Was any part of my marriage authentic? "This hyper-vigilant retrospection is a normal trauma response," Dr. Russell explained. "Your brain is searching previous experiences for missed signals, trying to protect you from future harm. The challenge is distinguishing between healthy reassessment and unproductive rumination." Through these conversations, I gradually developed tools for managing intrusive thoughts, establishing healthier boundaries, and rebuilding confidence in my own perceptions despite profound betrayal. The process wasn't linear. Progress alternated with setbacks, clarity with confusion, acceptance with renewed anger. The children's adjustment followed similarly uneven patterns. Emma initially channeled her feelings into cold fury toward Lisa, refusing phone calls and minimizing time during required visits. Nathan vacillated between clingy attachment to me and performative happiness with Lisa, his emotional stability depending heavily on predictable routines and clear communication. Family therapy became essential 3 months into our separation, providing structured space for the children to express their confused feelings without burdening either parent directly. Dr. Lowenstein, their therapist, offered valuable guidance for supporting their healing process. "Children often internalize responsibility for parental separation," she explained during a consultation. "Even when explicitly told otherwise, they search for ways they might have prevented the family breakdown. Consistent reassurance about their blamelessness is crucial." These insights helped me navigate difficult moments: Emma's sudden academic disinterest, Nathan's nighttime anxiety, both children's heightened sensitivity to any perceived rejection. I maintained steady presence despite my own emotional turbulence, prioritizing their security above personal pain. 4 months after separation, divorce proceedings advanced from theoretical to actual. Depositions were scheduled, financial disclosures submitted, custody evaluations arranged. The legal process transformed intimate betrayal into clinical documentation, simultaneously validating the legitimate grievance while reducing complex emotional harm to schedules and percentages. "This phase often feels dehumanizing," my lawyer acknowledged. "Try to remember the legal process addresses practical arrangements, not the full human reality of what you've experienced." This perspective helped maintain emotional equilibrium during particularly difficult aspects, reviewing text messages between Lisa and Mark as evidence, seeing lake house photos attached to formal documents, hearing clinical descriptions of their relationship timeline. The legal system couldn't address the deeper injuries of trust and identity, but it could establish practical foundations for rebuilding. 6 months into separation, an unexpected complication arose when Emma discovered social media speculation about her parents' divorce. Despite our careful handling, community whispers had reached digital platforms where adolescent cruelty amplified adult gossip. She arrived home from school one day in tears, having overheard classmates discussing her mother's affair with Uncle Mark. "Everyone knows," she sobbed, collapsing into my arms in a rare moment of vulnerability. "They're saying horrible things about Mom, and about us. They're saying our whole family was fake." The moment crystallized something I'd been gradually realizing through therapy. My anger toward Lisa and Mark, while justified, couldn't become the organizing principle for our family's future. The children needed permission to maintain relationships with both parents without carrying the burden of adult betrayals. Listen to me, I told Emma, holding her shoulders gently. What happened between Mom and me is about us, not about you. The relationship she has with you is completely separate from the mistakes she made in her marriage. You're allowed to love her without approving of her choices. You're allowed to be angry without cutting her out. Your feelings are valid, whatever they are. This conversation marked a subtle but significant shift in my healing journey, from focusing primarily on personal injury to recognizing my critical role in facilitating healthy family reconstruction despite profound personal betrayal. The children needed permission to love both parents without loyalty conflicts. Providing that permission required personal growth beyond justified anger. 7 months into separation, I encountered Mark unexpectedly at a professional conference, our first face-to-face meeting since confrontation night. The moment stretched with uncomfortable recognition across a crowded hotel lobby. Against my established pattern, I found myself approaching him, driven by an impulse I hadn't anticipated. "We should talk," I said simply, "not for your benefit, but for mine." We found a quiet corner of the hotel restaurant, maintaining formal distance while navigating conversation neither of us had planned. "I've wanted to apologize properly," Mark began, his confidence diminished from our last encounter. "I know words change nothing, but you deserve to hear directly that I understand the magnitude of what I destroyed. Not just your marriage, but our friendship and your ability to trust." "I didn't come for apologies," I replied evenly. "I came to tell you I'm releasing the anger I've carried. Not forgiving what you did, but refusing to let it consume more of my life than it already has. You and Lisa made your choices. I'm making mine, to move forward without the weight of hatred." His expression registered surprise at this unexpected direction. That's remarkably generous given what happened. "It's not generosity," I corrected. "It's self-preservation. Holding this anger damages me more than either of you at this point. I'm choosing my well-being over justified resentment." "Are you and Lisa?" he began cautiously. "The divorce proceeds as planned," I stated firmly. "This isn't reconciliation, it's reclamation of my own emotional health. Nothing changes regarding the practical consequences of your actions." Mark nodded, accepting these terms without protest. "For whatever it's worth, Lisa and I ended our relationship months ago. We both recognized it was built on foundations that couldn't sustain anything healthy." The information registered without triggering the emotional response it might have earlier. Their relationship status no longer defined my recovery process. "I wish you both well," I said, rising to leave. "Not because you deserve it, but because carrying ill will serve no purpose for me anymore." 8 months into separation, I experienced my first genuine laughter, spontaneous, unguarded amusement while playing board games with the children on a rainy Saturday. The moment caught me by surprise. A clear marker of healing I hadn't recognized was occurring. "Dad's actually having fun," Emma commented with theatrical shock, her own emotional healing evident in the gentle teasing. "Dad's always fun," Nathan protested loyally, though his smile suggested he too had noticed the change. The moment illuminated an essential truth about recovery. Healing happens incrementally, often unnoticed until retrospectively recognized. The deep wound of betrayal hadn't disappeared, but it had gradually transformed from acute, debilitating pain to a significant but manageable aspect of my life experience. 10 months into separation, final divorce terms were negotiated through mediators, avoiding the additional trauma of court testimony. The agreement represented fair division of assets, shared custody prioritizing the children's stability, and appropriate financial support. The legal system couldn't address the emotional injuries, but it established practical foundations for all parties to move forward separately. The divorce was finalized exactly 1 year after Emma's innocent question about a second Instagram account. The symmetry of this timing seemed appropriate. A complete revolution around the sun from devastating discovery to formal conclusion. Not the end of healing, certainly, but the closing of one chapter and opening of another. That evening, sitting on our back porch while the children finished homework inside, I reflected on the year's journey. The betrayal had permanently altered my understanding of trust, relationships, and human capacity for deception. It had transformed my family structure, my social connections, and my approach to vulnerability. But it hadn't destroyed my ability to find meaning, connection, or even joy, an outcome that would have seemed impossible during those first devastating days. The healing process remained ongoing, incomplete, sometimes painfully slow. But the overwhelming chaos of betrayal had gradually yielded to something more structured, a thoughtful assessment of what had been irretrievably lost, what remained salvageable, and what could be built anew from the rubble of broken trust. 12 months after discovery, I wasn't healed in any complete sense, but I was healing, reconstructing identity, relationships, and worldview with hard-won wisdom that acknowledged both human capacity for betrayal and resilience in its aftermath. Not recovery that erased what happened, but integration that incorporated painful experience into more conscious living. The fake Instagram account that had initiated this transformation remained preserved in screenshots, evidence for legal proceedings certainly, but also testament to a reality I'd needed to face. Not comfortable knowledge, but necessary truth that had ultimately forced growth I might otherwise have avoided. 2 years have passed since my daughter's innocent question about a second Instagram account shattered the foundations of my marriage, my oldest friendship, and my understanding of trust. In that time, I've built a life I couldn't have imagined during those first raw days, not because it's objectively better than what existed before, but because it's authentically mine, constructed with conscious intention rather than inherited assumptions about relationships and security. The question people ask most frequently is whether I've forgiven Lisa and Mark. My response has evolved from defensive rejection to nuanced reflection. Forgiveness isn't a single decision, but an ongoing process. I've released the anger not because they deserve absolution, but because I deserve freedom from its weight. The relationships remain permanently altered, but the pain no longer defines my daily experience. This perspective, distinguishing between pardoning actions and releasing their emotional power, represents one of many insights gained through this journey. Not understanding I would have chosen to acquire through such painful means, but valuable nonetheless in navigating a world where trust remains both necessary and inherently vulnerable. The divorce was finalized 18 months ago, the legal process remarkably straightforward given the documented circumstances. Lisa and I established functional co-parenting routines prioritizing the children's stability despite our personal fracture. Mark relocated to Seattle for a new position, creating geographic distance that helped everyone's healing process. My relationship with the children evolved through consistent presence rather than elaborate explanations or loyalty campaigns. Emma, now 17, eventually processed her anger toward Lisa without my encouragement or intervention. Nathan, 14, gradually stopped anxiety checking whether both parents would attend his events, accepting our separate but reliable support as his new normal. "You never made us choose sides," Emma observed during a recent conversation about a friend's more contentious parental divorce, even when you had every reason to paint Mom as the villain. "Your relationship with your mother is separate from what happened in our marriage," I explained. "You're allowed to love her completely without approving of choices she made that hurt me. Adult relationships have complexities that shouldn't contaminate parent-child connections." This perspective didn't develop immediately or easily. It emerged through therapy, conscious intention, and recognition that protecting the children's emotional well-being sometimes required setting aside justified personal resentment. Not excusing the behavior that fractured our family, but refusing to let that fracture define the children's relationship with either parent. The wisdom gained through this journey has reshaped not just my approach to parenting, but my fundamental understanding of trust, authenticity, and resilience. Trust requires both courage and discernment. In the aftermath of betrayal, I vacillated between extremes, overwhelming suspicion of everyone versus desperate desire to prove I wasn't permanently damaged by believing in someone again. Through therapy and reflection, I've developed a more balanced approach. Trust as conscious choice, rather than automatic orientation, informed by evidence without demanding perfection. Healthy trust includes appropriate verification, my therapist explained during a pivotal session. Not hypervigilance from unhealed trauma, but reasonable awareness that protects your well-being while allowing genuine connection. This perspective has enabled new relationships, both professional and eventually personal, built on more solid foundations than unexamined assumptions. I trust deliberately now, with eyes open to human complexity and capacity for both integrity and deception. Authenticity matters more than comfort. Before discovery, much of my life operated on implicit agreements to maintain comfortable narratives regardless of underlying realities. Lisa and I had gradually substituted performance of marriage for genuine connection. Mark and I had maintained friendship routines without evolving authentic communication. Even parenting sometimes prioritized appearance over substance. The betrayal's silver lining was forced confrontation with this pattern. Recognition that authentic living sometimes requires uncomfortable honesty rather than convenient fiction. This insight has transformed my relationships with the children, colleagues, friends, and eventually, new romantic connections. I'd rather face difficult truth than comfortable illusion became a guiding principle, not from cynicism, but from hard-won recognition that genuine connection requires courage to acknowledge reality without defensive filtering. Identity exists beyond relationships. The fake Instagram account created in my name represented more than practical deception. It embodied the disorienting experience of having my identity co-opted and manipulated by those I trusted most. Reclaiming authentic selfhood became essential to recovery. Who am I beyond betrayed husband, compromised friend, co-parent negotiating broken family, became the central question driving personal reconstruction. The answer emerged gradually through reconnection with dormant interests, development of new relationships uncomplicated by historical trauma, and deliberate exploration of aspects of identity previously subsumed by marriage and parenthood. Photography, once an occasional hobby, developed into serious creative practice. Weekend hiking evolved from stress management to genuine passion. Professional focus shifted from advancement metrics to meaningful contribution. None of these changes erased what happened, but they expanded identity beyond person who was betrayed to multi-dimensional self defined by choices rather than others' actions. Resilience emerges through integration, not compartmentalization. My initial impulse after discovery was to quarantine the betrayal experience, to isolate it as an unfortunate chapter unrelated to my core identity or future possibilities. This approach proved unsustainable, as the lessons learned through betrayal continuously influenced perceptions and choices, whether acknowledged or not. Genuine healing began when I recognized that sustainable recovery required integration rather than compartmentalization, incorporating the betrayal experience into understanding without allowing it to dominate identity. Not defining myself primarily as someone who was cheated on, but acknowledging how that experience had shaped perspective on trust, vulnerability, and resilience. This integrated approach has allowed building new connections without either projecting past betrayal onto present relationships or pretending previous experiences don't inform current boundaries and expectations. 18 months after divorce finalization, I began dating again. Cautiously at first, with the heightened awareness that comes from profound betrayal, but gradually with increasing openness to genuine connection. The relationship that developed with Elaine, a landscape architect I met through a community park project, progressed naturally without either reckless vulnerability or paranoid protection. I've experienced significant betrayal, I told her on our third date, believing in transparency about experiences that shaped my approach to relationships. It's changed how I understand trust and communication, not in ways that make connection impossible, but in ways that make me more intentional about boundaries and expectations. Her response, thoughtful acknowledgement without either dismissive reassurance or dramatic promises, reflected the kind of authentic engagement I now recognized as essential to healthy relationships. Not performance designed to achieve specific outcomes, but genuine presence with appropriate recognition of both connection and autonomy. Our relationship has developed gradually over 18 months, building on consistent demonstrations of integrity rather than assumed trustworthiness. When she says she'll call, she calls. When plans change, she communicates directly. When difficult topics arise, she engages rather than deflects. These aren't extraordinary measures, but basic considerations I now recognize as fundamental rather than optional. The children have adjusted to her presence in our lives with typical adolescent combination of acceptance and occasional boundary testing. Emma, initially protective of family reconstruction, gradually recognized Elaine's authentic respect for existing family connections. Nathan, more immediately accepting, appreciated her interest in his activities without pressure to manufacture instant bond. "She doesn't try too hard," Emma observed in rare teenage approval, "and she actually listens when we talk instead of just waiting to say her thing." The observation struck me powerfully. My daughter had unconsciously identified the quality that had first drawn me to Elaine, authentic presence rather than performative connection. The betrayal experience had heightened both our abilities to recognize and value genuine engagement. Lisa has followed her own path toward reconstruction, returning to graduate studies deferred during our marriage, developing new social connections, eventually beginning relationship with someone from her academic program. Our interactions remain focused on co-parenting logistics, maintaining appropriate separation between parallel lives while coordinating children's needs. Mark reached out on the second anniversary of discovery, not seeking renewed friendship, but offering final acknowledgement. "I know better than to expect forgiveness or restored connection. I just want you to know that losing your friendship remains my greatest regret. The consequences of my choices have been appropriately severe, particularly losing connection with Emma and Nathan as they grow. I wish you peace and happiness, which you've always deserved." I didn't respond directly, but I recognized the message as part of my own healing closure, confirmation that appropriate consequences had manifested without requiring my active participation in their creation. 2 years after that morning when Emma innocently asked about a second Instagram account, I recognized that the path from betrayal to transformation wasn't simple journey from injury to recovery, but complex integration of difficult experience into expanded understanding. Not healing that erases what happened, but resilience that incorporates painful knowledge into more conscious living. The fake Instagram account that exposed my wife's affair with my best friend ultimately revealed something beyond their specific betrayal. It illuminated the danger of relationships built on performance rather than authenticity, the limitation of trust without appropriate boundaries, and the possibility of reconstruction not despite devastating knowledge, but because of the clarity it eventually provides. For those navigating similar discoveries, whether through technology, chance encounter, or direct confession, I offer this hard-won wisdom. The pain you're experiencing is real and valid. The disorientation when fundamental trust is violated is not weakness, but natural response to profound breach. The questioning of your own judgment is not paranoia, but necessary recalibration after significant misperception. But beyond these difficult realities lies potential transformation. Not return to who you were before betrayal, but evolution into someone with deeper understanding of human complexity, more conscious approach to trust, greater appreciation for authentic connection precisely because you've experienced its counterfeit. This transformation doesn't happen easily or quickly. It emerges through consistent small choices to remain engaged with difficult truths rather than retreating into comfortable illusion. It develops through balancing appropriate skepticism with continued openness to genuine connection. It manifests in relationships characterized by conscious trust rather than naive assumption or paranoid withdrawal. The fake Instagram account created in my name ultimately reset more than just my marriage. It initiated profound recalibration of my understanding of authenticity, trust, and resilience. A reset that, while painfully traumatic, eventually enabled construction of a life more genuinely aligned with reality than what existed before that fateful discovery. And perhaps that's the paradoxical gift hidden within devastating betrayal. the opportunity to build something authentic from the ruins of comfortable illusion, something sustainable in its acknowledgement of human complexity, something resilient precisely because it incorporates rather than denies the possibility of deception. Not a story of simple recovery, but of complex transformation. Not return to innocent trust, but evolution toward conscious connection. Not erasure of painful knowledge, but integration of difficult truth into more authentic living. If this story resonated with your experience, please consider sharing it with others navigating similar betrayals. Your comments about related discoveries or questions about healing afterward are welcome. This community has become a vital source of support for many walking parallel paths. And if you're currently in the raw stages of discovery, please know that while the pain you're experiencing is real and valid, it need not define your entire future. Beyond the disorientation of betrayal lies the possibility of rebuilding, not despite difficult knowledge, but because of the clarity it eventually provides. Thank you for listening.